Very
Good morning.
good.
Or good afternoon or good evening. Depends on where you are.
Depending on where you're at. That's right.
How are you guys doing?
Doing great. So I'm excited about this conversation because, there's I was just dealing with this. I have a couple of admins that I work with on my side, and there's a constant challenge in delegation and that kind of stuff. So I'd love to hear Helani's explanation on that. So she'll be joining us here in just a moment.
Yeah, it's really, really critical. I think I love some of the commentary she makes to double your productivity and ability to accomplish more. Because it takes a lot of energy to be an executive and really think strategically and look forward to the future, and having some of those very, very important tasks, but kind of your brain power is constantly like, oh gosh, I got to get this bill paid, or I forgot about getting the employee luncheon ordered or something like that.
Yeah.
Cognitive overload. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I have been thinking a lot about this topic. Yeah. And then I've also been thinking I have an executive assistant, by the way, Hilani, but I also would like to have a personal assistant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they are a little different. And so maybe we'll get to talk about that too a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm realizing that I would not want to be mixing my executive assistant's role with my personal life. My personal life is a little bit crazy, which you're going to learn about probably.
Yeah.
But I think it wouldn't be appropriate, right?
Yeah, there can be a small percentage, especially when it's going to be attached to the calendar. The calendar drives so much that, if it's a doctor's appointments, or if we have the need for any sports activity schedules with little ones, we want to get that on the calendar. We want to own those personal things with you so that we also know where you are.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
We also know where you are.
Yeah. Well, we do. We are now broadcasting live, and we're going to have some people joining in as we get ready to start the conversation at the top of the hour. So we can just chat till then. But yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation and a lot to discuss. But real quick, just a little bit about you, because Helani, and I know that you you used to be in LA, and then New York, then Colorado, and then now you're on the East Coast. Is that right?
No, I'm still actually in Denver. Originally,
you're still in Denver.
East Coast, bopped to Los Angeles in California, parked myself here in Denver, been here for almost 13, 14 years. We got here.
Okay.
So I'm here right in the middle of the continent.
Yeah, you're next to Cherry Creek area, huh?
Yes.
That's a beautiful area.
Which is great.
Great mall.
Yes. A lot of outdoor stuff too, which is great.
Yeah. Outdoor restaurants, patios.
Yeah, especially in the winter. Yeah.
I know.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, sure. Glad to have you. I mean, I know you're a fellow Vistage member, and so it's a great organization. So and it's what's introduced us together, right? So you came and spoke at our event, so it's great. Yeah. So we were talking about being outside, and geez, that's been such a wonderful relief this summer, just to be able to move around a little bit more. So it's been really good. I mean, have you been doing any? Did you take a vacation this summer?
We did. We traveled to Cabo in June.
Oh, nice.
And it was spectacular. It is. This one place that we continually frequent is right on the ocean, and my boys are 16 and 11. And if they can float in the ocean all day with their floaties, do a little snorkeling, the time, which is a luxury during vacationing, not at the office, we really try to use each of those minutes that pass with some fun stuff. And so they also do jet skiing with my husband. I'm over way off on the sand. I'm not so big about fishes in the ocean, but I'll go in the ocean. And we took a boat out for a couple hours with the captain, which was just such a treat.
Oh,
such
nice.
a treat.
Did you go out to
what was that?
Did you go out to the arch,
So we stay near the arch. Yes, we do. We stay near the arch. We're in that little space, and The front side, which is not large waves, is called Lover's Beach. And the back side, which is on the Pacific, which you cannot swim, is called Divorce Beach. So we are on the Lover's Side beach. When you get dropped off by a little taxi boat and you can snorkel over there. It's hot over there. And it's a really wonderful thing. So yes, we made it to Cabo in June. We're actually looking to go back again for Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's probably a cooler time. Thanksgiving.
Anyone else get a trip in over the summer?
Did you go anywhere, Jules?
No, but I'm actually going to Colombia in I think it's my boyfriend booked the tickets. I think it's October or November because he's got a big family, big Latin family. So one of his many cousins is getting married. So we're doing I'm going to go for my first big Colombian wedding. So I'm very excited. They've rented it's a big boat for the day, and then the next day is the celebration. And I've never been to South America, so it's been on my list forever, but with COVID I was like, okay, so not going there for a little while. So yeah, that'll be the next big trip, so I'm really excited.
Oh, how exciting.
That's great. Well, we are at the top.
I'm packing leggings and just eating my way through.
Yeah, your beach cover up.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I always have the one-piece bathing suit. I don't do the two-piece, you gotta hide the eating somehow, somewhere.
Yeah. You'll drink your dessert multiple times.
There we go.
Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I think we should get kicked off here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And Jules, if you can go ahead and take things over, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's good. We've got a nice group already. So welcome everyone to the People Strategies Forum. We're very excited to have you all here. Whether you've been coming each and every week or whether you're new, welcome. If you haven't been here before, my name is Jules. I help to host the forum each and every week. And I also hang out in the chat. I talk to everyone and try to get all the questions answered. And if you do have any questions for our speaker, please don't be shy, put them in there because it really helps us also guide the conversation and cater it to you. And also if you're watching on any other platform outside of Zoom, still put your questions in there because we do go back in and get those answered at the very end. So I'm very excited because we have an awesome speaker. We're talking all about how an executive can really manage their time better. And just to kind of go back, just to let you know what we all do here, we're really just a mastermind of leaders. We really want to create an environment and help you learn how to create work environments where people thrive, customers love, and management rewards, very important. And I'm also helped through these sessions with my awesome panel here. First up, we have Shah. Shah is always a very fun, dynamic person on our panel. Always lots to say because she has over 20 years of HR and talent management experience. She worked for many years in the corporate world before branching off and starting her own company. And she is currently the owner of Rocky Mountain Health Advocates. So good morning, Shah.
Good morning.
Good to have you here. And then we also have Sam, who is the founder and CEO of Comp Team. He is a global certified compensation consultant. So he helps plenty of companies transform their businesses through talent management, reward strategies, and much more. So he also brings this strategy forum to us each and every week. So always great to have Sam here. I mean, Sam's the man. And then Sumit isn't here with us this morning, but hopefully he can pop on next week. And to introduce our lovely guest speaker, we have Helani Ellis. And a little bit about her, if you were tuning into our little chat before we officially started, we were talking a bit about her background. Now, she started as an admin professional, so she's been in the trenches. She's seen it all. She's worked with executives. She's really, yeah, I love it. And now she's gone on to create her own company, Exceptional Admins. And so she helps executives find the perfect executive assistants for their companies. She also, previously to starting that company, she worked in LA, helping executives in the entertainment industry. So she really does have a lot of knowledge in this area. And we're very excited to hear all of the ways in which management can get their time back, manage their time a little bit better. And so Helani, thank you so much. Oh, and you also have a podcast. So you need to check out the podcast. It's also called Exceptional Admins. And I know Sam has an episode on there with you. So I'm going to tune into that a little later today.
So, it hasn't released yet. It's scheduled for release soon. Yes, they release every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it's a great side effort and activity. And it's really exciting also when I'm talking to candidates or professionals that I've placed. And I'm like, you really would benefit from this episode number such and such. There's a great discussion. Or you remind me of someone who went through what you're going through. Go have a sense of familiarity as well as a reboost of confidence that you're not alone in your situation. And I kept finding myself repeating certain things throughout the years of running this company, Exceptional Admins, that I was like, I've got to take the leap and put a podcast together so that individuals can go back and listen. And yes, it's another way to sort of experience what Exceptional Admins does, which is specialized to the talent acquisition space.
Right.
Love that. What a great resource too, because then you can, just point them in the right direction, be like, this will help you a little bit more. So I love that.
It buys me back time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
It buys me back time because instead of spending an extra 6 or 7 minutes kind of regurgitating that conversation, it's right there for them to enjoy, and they can play it as many times as they want. So I'm definitely a fan of capitalizing on time.
Yeah.
So vital for our success.
Yeah. Sam, thank you for inviting me. I'm very much looking forward to this time together with everyone involved here. Yeah. Thank you.
So speaking of time, I mean, that's a big topic of today, right? And we all know that it's a scarce resource, and there's always a challenge of balancing the amount of time that we have with work and being the most effective and productive there, and also the time at home with our loved ones and making sure that we have that carved out as a priority as well. So can you tell us a little bit about your concept of time and how it's best leveraged?
Yeah. So time is not a luxury unless you're on vacation, right? We all know when we go on vacation, it's like, what do we do now? Oh my gosh, it's only 11. We've got the whole entire rest of the day. Whereas at the office, oh my gosh, it's 11. I need more time. And so I'm a really big fan of acknowledging that time is the one thing we cannot manipulate, not fully. However, when you have a replica co-pilot, someone who thinks similar, someone who executes similar, someone who joins you in your workflow cadence, you can actually turn 1 minute into 2. And so from a time perspective, leaders are regularly struggling against the clock on, I just need more time. And to your point, Sam, which is beautiful, we are humans who are slightly bifurcated in we're our personal self and our professional self. I continue to find with leaders I talk to, they're just one whole person and it's blended. And so how do we help serve that need to be a person, a parent of sorts, a partner of sorts, as well as a professional in the office? And if you don't have an assistant helping you multiply time, you are the assistant and you are spending time on those tasks that, yes, are very important, but is it the best use of your time, right? Is it on your purpose for every day? So time is not a luxury unless you're on vacation. And in the office, using and thinking of the concept of capitalizing on every minute, turning it into 2. I also have some past clients that have a chief of staff, an executive assistant, and then an administrative assistant. That means that 1 minute is 5 minutes or 4 minutes. And so how do you create that multiplying of time, which is something we cannot control? And I'm obviously a firm believer that an administrative individual, a part of an executive's day-to-day, helps that executive multiply time.
So I know there's a lot of things that to talk about as time, as far as how to leverage that and how to use staff and admins and those professionals to duplicate our time or multiply our time spent and so forth. But when we look at time just in general and in the modern workplace, and especially in this new hybrid and remote workplace that we have today. Is there any separation between work and home, or how are you seeing your executives that are most successful categorize their time? Is it intertwined? Are they keeping them separate, home and work?
So talking to a lot of admins on a daily and weekly basis, and probably having connected with, this year alone in 2021, at least 700 calls, hearing from them and getting, which is the most exciting part of my day, even though it's serving the needs of clients and searches, I'm on the ground still through their stories and their ideas. And the thing that's happening is, with this sort of, a lot of people also working remotely, they're not being able to separate from that personal to business. Creating rules, whether you have an assistant or not, this can be applied as an independent executive, entrepreneur, business owner, three-person business. What is each goal? What is each day serving to meet your day goals? So if you want to have 5 touch points, and that could be calls, that can be virtual, that can actually be leaving the house, to have in-person time, and then creating micro thinking moments throughout the day to fill it in on the calendar. And that may be doing research for, if you do plan to travel, that may be, getting ready for your quarterly taxes, which are coming up. Really trying to define time that is specific to focus time. And I'm constantly advocating with the people I interact with, don't just put the word buffer, don't put the word block, be intentional with what you want to achieve there. They also say that 1 to 2 minutes is necessary to actually become deeply focused in the work that you're about to do, which makes it challenging if the things that you need to do are 30 minutes before you can really actually move your needle of achievement to the next step on that task. Obviously, don't assign that during 15 minutes. And so being intentional with where those blocks sit. I have a rule with my assistant that we have so many touch points each day. We fill in the other touch points, and I'm very adamant about color coding. It also helps us understand how we're going to be investing our energy for the day. I like to sometimes identify, which I'll do here. We shouldn't just be looking at time. We should be figuring out time is also energy. Where's our energy going? Something I do in the workshop I hold EA University is I try to change the script on how assistants view their executive's calendar on what time should that be? Where's the appropriate place for his or her energy? And so thinking about energy on intention with separating personal. I'm also a big advocate with admins is your executive getting in fitness and meditation and mindful time. And if not, just like, have they not had lunch yet? Are they going to be hangry? We need to make sure that we carve that out for them.
Right. And I suppose you can be very strategic in scheduling the best meetings around when you're most productive, or your leadership's most productive, and so forth.
Absolutely. Nothing is really on my calendar after 3 o'clock on Friday.
Yeah.
And I get emails sometimes for introductions at like 5 o'clock on a Friday, and I snooze it, which is a really neat technical solution for how are we capitalizing on the amazing technology that we have presented to us. And so I have some tips for that I hope to sprinkle in during our discussion today.
That's great. So Shar, I know that you're a very busy person in yourself. And when you think about how you schedule your day and so forth, do you do the calendar planning like Helani was just telling us about, the scheduling and color coding your calendar?
Yeah, well, I'm a big color code girl for sure. Recently, because I'm my CEO and fiance is a sports buff. We are all about at least accomplishing 3 home runs a day, Nice. And I think I've been doing that because 3 home runs a day kind of gives me, although I do have calendar blocks and time blocks and various things, it just helps me at least accomplish those major goals and major nuggets. And then also our executive assistant does know that I'm more a morning person and he's more of a night person. So she's usually connecting with me in the morning and she's connecting in with him in the evening.
Excellent.
So she knows kind of our clocks and how we operate. when we're both productive and not productive. But Melissa has been invaluable to us. And one of the things I was going to share is that I noticed that Bruce, my CEO, was spending so much time on hold with, like, you know, speaking of the internet providers for 2.5 hours at times on hold, you know, horrible.
Yeah.
And I finally suggested to him that he needed to learn how to delegate to his executive assistant. She could actually sit on hold for 2.5 hours and go through candidates, you know, go screen candidates and forward candidates and set up interviews while she's sitting on hold.
Yeah.
And yay, Melissa.
Yeah, that's right. So let's just talk about that particular concept, because, you know, as a lot of executives that are starting out, or maybe they just got promoted to being an executive and they're trying to do it all. They're trying to, you know, maybe do too much micromanaging and so forth. And so in suggesting a person, an executive assistant, to help them out, what is the first steps that they should be thinking about on how to leverage their time and use their resources effectively with their new admin?
I give them a homework assignment, which they usually are like, wait, I have homework? I thought you were going to do all the work. When I have an initial discussion or I'm out, you know, sort of pre-COVID networking more, it comes up with, first, they don't kind of know what to do if they've got one. And so that is the gift of partnering with me, is there's this education space that is very exciting. And this is to your question. They need to track for a minimum of a week. And I've had some be very effective with this, building out a spreadsheet. And I've had some that are making a note in their phone. There's no right or wrong way to do this suggestion. Once you spend at least 2 days doing it, you start to get actually excited to do it by day 3, 4, and 5. And yes, I'm asking them to do something. I'm asking them to add another task, but this task is going to have an ROI that's going to save essentially their life, their company, their human capital, and all the beautiful things that ripple from this effort. And writing down the tasks that they get that they don't like to do, or acknowledging the fact that they have a task that they're procrastinating on. That's a big one too, because they also then become a bottleneck. And traditionally, executives want to be giving of themselves, they're servant leaders on their own. And then they're always being drawn from, this came up, I think, before we started recording, cognitive overload. And if we recognize that cognitive overload, we have a bit more empathy for the fact that they're tardy to a meeting, they're unattentive in a meeting, and that they're a bottleneck for a task. And so tracking it, which traditionally the first thing is, I've got to do 5 email exchanges to book a 30-minute call. For the people that aren't ready for an assistant, Calendly is key. It is an amazing tool, which then certain people think, well, it's impersonal. Do 2 or 3 times of a back and forth versus 5, and then say, hey, to save both of us and our time, energy, here's a link. Please find something that's most convenient for you, right? And we get a little nervous because, especially those that are in sales or business development, it's all about relationships. So that's kind of one of my main tips. If they can track down the things that they don't essentially feel a sense of accomplishment, and I loved your golden nuggets, Char, because I learned right in the middle of the pandemic, I needed 3 things each day that if I just completed those, I had a sense of accomplishment, because there was this weight in the air for me. And I needed to show up for myself to figure out what those things were. So for the executives, sort of using your tip, figuring out what 3 or 4 things do they want to achieve each day that they can't get to because they're getting bogged down, which then there's essentially 2 lists. There's a side of a piece of paper or on your phone under the category on purpose. This task that I'm doing is keeping me on purpose to my brand, my mission, my life. Off purpose is the other column. What moves me off purpose? Now, that can be a negotiable and non-negotiable list, but just go to town. I mean, you have no limitations. When you start to actually have it written down, because a lot of this is also natural habit of execution, sending that email, putting that on the calendar, you know, saying a reminder on your phone if you're using Siri or any other tool, remind me in 5 minutes. I have an Apple Watch that I could not live without. I put reminders on. I mean, it's just I'm using technology all day. When an executive sees that off-purpose list, there is this sort of chest thump of, oh my gosh, if I didn't do that, and I was only doing this, I could just imagine how greater, one, my sense of accomplishment as a leader is, two, my happiness level. Let's kind of own that for a moment. And the fact that they have goals and how are they going to reach them? And then the natural thought is, well, if that off-purpose list is like 5 or 6 hours only a week, does that still mean I need an assistant? It does, and you need a fractional assistant.
Right. Well, the one word that you brought up is about relationship. And I would say that as an HR executive throughout my entire career, I learned that one of my best friends in the organization was always the executive assistants.
Yeah.
And I learned that because as a talent management HR executive that was always talking about relationship in the organization, I knew that the executive assistant was going to be the eyes and the ears to the executives. And so I really got to know them very well so that I could know each of the executives very well about what their goals were, what their ambitions, how they could relate with their employees and their teams, motivate their teams, make their teams more productive, and how could my role in HR and talent management strategy can be better aligned. So some of my very best colleagues have always been executive assistants, and also some of my very best friends have been executive assistants. And one of my best friends, I call her the cruise director, and she knows who she is.
I've had some assistants tell me they're the air traffic controller,
Right.
which is another fun title. I'm going to point it out here because it's key. The title, and listen, there is a beautiful organizational chart for the administrative profession. Right. The higher level is chief of staff. There's some new titles that I'm trying to throw into the community to sort of just change the vision, because there is a lot of bias with the title executive assistant. But the word executive is the first word of their title. Right. We need to be recognizing that they have the ability to make executive decisions, manage up an executive, be able to be having executive composure, which I talk about a lot on my podcast and articles on my website. And sometimes there are executive assistants or administrative professionals that may not meet some of those high desires. And there's always something going on behind the scenes that then unfortunately leaves an executive to feel, well, is that what I would be hiring? Because I've only been exposed to this one style of executive assisting. So two things. Each executive assistant, or let's generalize it, administrative professional has their own style of brand. Joanna Gaines is a brand, Oprah is a brand, Chip Gaines, her husband, is a brand. Each admin is their own brand of service and how they serve the needs of a role. I don't believe that two assistants are alike. And so when admins recognize their outliers that are so positive to an executive in an organization, they can more articulate their toolbox of what they're going to bring to someone like Sam. And so there's all of these things that have been going on that really haven't gotten a spotlight through the years in the talent acquisition process of an admin, which I'm just so honored that I'm supporting the community professionals and assistants in a neutral way to help them get where they need to go in scaling a company, and an assistant getting into a role that has high job satisfaction.
So let's dive into that a little bit more, just into those different areas. I mean, you're talking about chief of staff, executive assistant, administrative assistant. There's also personal assistants. I mean, let's look at the full realm here. And how do you decide when you look at a particular executive or leader, how do you decide which one's the best fit for them at the particular time?
I know what I'm about to explain is that I'm also speaking on behalf of hundreds of thousands of professionals. So I want to be very thoughtful of each and individual person who sits in any of the titles I'm about to mention. It is my experience having sat in the seat for over a decade. It's my experience of having over 4,000 calls in almost 5 years of running this company that gives me the script and narrative about what I'm about to say. So from sort of a hierarchy, you have your receptionist. And I will also say, it just blends together sometimes. And there is no true like accounting one accounting 2, data analysts, those have more structure. We have just such a running blend of, well, a receptionist could almost be an administrative assistant, and an office manager should be an executive assistant. And so I'm going to kind of clean that up a little bit here to also sort of shave away some bias. You have a receptionist. Director of first impression is a trend I'm seeing, and I like it, right? There is the old sort of persona of receptionist. We won't get into what that profile looks like. You can create your own, which would traditionally be pushed by bias. The receptionist now looking for director of first impression, hospitality. Yes, there's some ordering of supplies. There's meeting and loving on your FedEx person, your UPS person, your USPS person, all of those things. They are the first impression to your company, the receptionist. I have heard receptionists doing administrative work and calendar management. That word sort of bleeds into administrative assistant. Administrative assistant may be new in their career. They may be later in their career and they want less work. There isn't really a structured on how many years you need. And I'll actually talk about that at the end of mentioning this explanation. In the administrative assistant, sometimes they don't do anything that is strategic. They don't build out PowerPoints. Sometimes they do. Again, my sort of mention at the beginning, sometimes they do. This is also where it's complicated in this profession. An administrative assistant is maybe new in their career. They maybe didn't go to school, which isn't absolutely necessary to be successful in this career. I did not finish college. Then you have them doing kind of the main job scope, calendaring, some meeting coordination, but not doing PowerPoints, maybe assembling some files, whether soft or hard, getting a stapler out, doing a lot of printing, taking care of binders, being really responsible for the filing structure and system. That's really where they're also understanding how businesses work, right? Like, why does Sam do what he does, and how does that generate revenue, and how does that create jobs? The executive assistant space sucks up a lot of space on what might be kind of like that explanation. And it's also where there's a lot of confusion. Personal assisting can fall in there. House management can fall in there. They can be a chief of staff, but don't have that title because it causes 6 figures to show up. And therefore, there's these assistants who are executive assistants on the precipice of needing that title, essentially for more credibility, for more authority, in a positive manner, of course. And they just don't have the title because it's expensive. And the thought of chief of staff has only been thought of in government and academia. Well, it's really been beautiful the last 2 years, seeing an uptick in that demand and executive assistants breaking through the ceiling, getting to that ultimately what they've been doing the last 3 years under the title executive assistant. Executive assistants may be in strategic meetings. I had an executive assistant that moved to be a chief of staff. She was holding 15-minute pre-meetings with individuals that wanted time with her executive to approve the meeting or not. That's huge.
Yes.
And they would show up knowing what this assistant was going to want from them. And it wasn't to negatively gatekeep. It was, she knew everything. They got more drilled down on their needs so that when the executive had the meeting, it was 30 minutes, not an hour. And it was an actual meeting, not a conversation. The conversation was with her. What do you want to get out of this meeting with him? And so that's really where there's that area of executive assisting to being a chief of staff. A lot of people also believe a chief of staff needs an MBA. I think that that is circumstantial. I do. In the essence of personal assisting and office management, I see a lot of resumes where someone was an executive assistant and they did it for a while in a couple different roles. Then they were an office manager for just like a short blip. And then they were an executive assistant again. I had a personal experience in one of my roles where I was doing more office management than executive assisting, that I had to audit what was sort of causing me to feel less job satisfaction. And I had automated my executive so well that the needs of satisfying the demands of his workflow became less because I was 20 steps ahead. People were calling me instead of him, and I was getting stuff done because of the executive in my title of being able to support decisions without needing my executive. And he also traveled a lot. So I wanted to keep things moving. Office management, I have found time and time again that they appreciate supporting the executive, but they don't want to do it full time. So it's really important, if you're going to build out the scope of the role, to use percentages on where someone's going to concentrate their energy and time on your behalf that ultimately supports the objective and employee impact with that hire.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So
Well,
there's a lot.
yeah, there is a lot there. And so we left off, and I want to revisit back again as far as how to delegate effectively. So you gave some tools there, basically on the first task of an executive or leader is to, list all the things that they're doing on over a period of at least a week, and to understand what is giving them the best ROI on their time, the return on investment, right?
Mhm.
And then think about, and once they have that list in hand, what's the next step? I mean, how does their assistant help them go through that list and see what they should be delegating and so forth?
Great question. Just to make sure, do they have an assistant with your question, or do they not?
Well, let's just say that they just came on with a new assistant and are trying to figure out how to leverage their time more effectively.
Okay. So a lot happens when a new assistant is hired, and I'll speak to the side of the executive first. They're so excited. They just give it away. Just give it away. And it's like getting a brand new Porsche, right? And it's like, when can I take it out to drive it, if that's your thing? Or getting those new skis, when can I go ski? Or if you live where there's a boat and you can own a boat. I was in Florida on the canals. I was like, I need to be in a boat right now. And there's just this sense of high excitement. So from the executive side, the solution has showed up, and this person is now ready to take over my tasks. There is a very methodical fashion in which you onboard an assistant. And in my work I do with clients and the assistant that gets the role, I'm there for 90 days. I'm not with them every day. I don't go on the job, but they're sort of a VIP in my calendar if they need my time, so that if the assistant wants to talk to me or the executive does, I am there. And I am there as the dance instructor, right? We are learning how to waltz from one side to the other. And it is no way to say that I am micromanaging anyone, but I do have the most wisdom on the topic. So when you've done over 100 placements and you've sat in a seat, you are the expert on the topic outside of those two. So for the executive, when you delegate, and I often say, please try to delegate a lot, because you need them to start understanding context. Mm-hmm. Context is key. If you delegate and do not have the space, energy, or time to explain the why you're doing this for me and where this is a priority for me, you've lost out on the learning moment. Mm-hmm. Right. You delay then the cadence and autonomy that you want them to have on day one. I actually have a podcast episode that's releasing in just a moment. I think it's this coming Sunday. It's called Day One is Not Day 366. They have not been in the role a year on day one. No, and so anyone that will watch this now as we're recording it or in the future, the patience that you leverage pays off in spades later. And so, hey, Hilani, I need you to do this. Here's why you're doing it. And here's where it's a priority for me. And there are ways to really start to show alignment so you're not in different places, so that you are here when you explain the priority. I love all of my clients and they all think everything is on fire. And I appreciate that. And once we get to the point where we understand them, we also feel like everything is on fire, but we know how to put out the fire. We know how to make it a low burning sweet candle smelling of pumpkin fire, like all of those things. So being able to explain why they're doing it and where is it a priority for you supports that delegation with a new assistant. I also know that the thought of a one-on-one meeting is not exciting. If you don't give those up front, and I'm still talking to the executives because I'll talk to the assistants in just a moment, you're missing out again on learning moments. The entire thing is learning. And even if their title has said executive assistant, you are new. You do everything different. You want tea and not coffee. You want no color coding, or you do, which please, dear goodness, have color coding.
Yes.
And so if you don't, that's another loss of time. Just like, where am I going? What am I doing? So really recognizing cadence doesn't show up until after 6 months. And if you travel, it's longer. And so really being available. Now to the assistants, if they are unorganized, they struggle earning trust with the executive, because trust comes up. It's like one of the top 3 things. It's third. It's business acumen, it's competence, and it's trust. I hear a lot.
Right.
They can't build trust with you if they show up with a stack of papers and no agenda for that one-on-one meeting. So Sam, where do you want to start first? That would be something an assistant might say, which in some circumstances is fine. It's a casual talking discussion. We usually don't have that time to spare. Again, time is not luxury here. So they want to have an agenda. They also want it compartmentalized based on the things that are going on. And even if you are 2 or 3 weeks new in your role, you're hearing everything, right? You are that center, you are the kitchen, you are that center space. You should be frantically writing or typing down every little word that you hear. I would sit in meetings at the private equity firm. I knew nothing about private equity. And I'd be doing research every night. Like, what does that term? And what does that mean? I'd be scheduling time with our chief, our SEC general counsel. Like, what does this mean? And they gave it to me because I was showing an interest in what everything meant. So when you're going to have a meeting with your executive, which is how you build trust, is what is the agenda? What are we talking about? What is the most important? Because I'll tell you, whatever's at the bottom of your list, if it's important, you're not going to get to it because time flies by so fast. I have a philosophy. We all think, yes, time flies by until I make this next statement. 1 minute can last a long time if you're doing a 1 minute plank.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If you do a fitness 1 minute plank, you're like, when is this over? So a minute can go slow and a minute can go fast, but it's still the same 60 seconds. So how are you using that 60 seconds is key. And so having, an agenda, saving certain questions for another time, how you're emailing, which is using time of the executive. If you have action items and updates in the same email, you're being irresponsible on the behalf of your executive. It's too much cognitive overload. Like, they cannot digest it easily. If you have paragraphs going and going, they don't want to sit and read what's like a legal document all day, especially if they're making heavy decisions that are requiring them to read, the next M&A document, the legal counsel sending them new notes, bullets all day long, or numerical.
Okay, so as part of our listening audience, we have executives, we have HR professionals, and so forth. I'm sure there's a lot of admins that are joining today on how they can learn from you. But in all this, as in a situation where a person is, or a leader has, perhaps they're getting frustrated. Well, I asked you to do that, and it didn't come back the way that I wanted it to. They lost trust. Maybe they didn't hand off it effectively. So when HR leaders see this happening and how they can help the executive and the admin, because they know the admin's competent, how can we solve this problem? A manager saying, well, I can just do it faster myself, things like this.
Yeah. So if I were an assistant today in a role and I was just continually having static with my executive, and the executive didn't come to me directly, which happens, and goes to HR and says, please help me, help her. I would say that the wisdom for HR is, do you understand the goals of your executive? Do you understand them also in a micro fashion on what this executive needs to achieve? And if not, I want to work with you on that. Second, because sometimes in those situations, admins want to use that space to complain. I say the best leadership quality an assistant can do is listen, write down questions, process to come back to be proactive. And that's hard because, and I said this, I think, before we started recording. And so for executives and HR people, there is a sense of island that admins live on, that people don't know what we do every day because we just make things happen. They don't know that we got an email at 5 a.m. because our executive is in a different time zone. And therefore we tackled something and we were up. and now we're rushing to get to the office because of something else. We're not going to ask for the hurrah every time we do that, but it's all of these things that happen on the back end, which is why I'm such a big admin advocate for sit up tall, be proactive, and show up with your voice. And your voice is through having effective communication, which is through intelligent questions, which is also absolutely saying, I need help. I don't know the goals of my executive because my executive's not giving me time to explain that to me. You have a ton of resources, hopefully, if your organization is even 10 people, to learn that. Mm-hmm. The second thing is when an individual may be underperforming to the needs of the executive missed the opportunity to say, Hilani, this is what success looks like if you finish this task well.
Sure.
That's letting them know. Also, assistants love that. We want to meet expectations and absolutely rise above them every day. And if we don't have an explanation of their expectation, and we might be new or they're going through a season and we're not on a personal relationship to know other issues they have, and they're off on their average greatness, we don't know that. And so this is also why this hire is, excuse the term, but it's the only way to explain it. It's intimate. It's important to know, when is your executive going to be hangry? When is something going on in the personal capacity of their life that it may come into, they have no focus capacity in the morning. Don't plan anything. Let them just come into the office, do their email, maybe hold a call with one of their advisors, and then feed them lunch, keep them nourished, and then send them on their merry way to get stuff done. Right. And we have to give grace with that. And so from a trust perspective for HR, to your question, asking them, do they understand the goals? Performance improvement plans for admins is very challenging. I surely hope no one ever has that unless they're truly making mistakes that are like very bad, as well as recognizing, do you know from your executive what success looks like? And this is the biggest thing. And it's a term I love. And I hope anyone watching this uses this. You have the ability to give these admins permission slips. Let me help you schedule time with the CFO. Let me get you in front of someone who's been here forever. Maybe we need a reset and you need to just reconnect with people because your island that you live on is so far away from everyone mentally and emotionally. And then when you kind of do that reset, and this could be done in a 30-minute discussion. I mean, I'm not asking for hours of time for the assistants. I'm asking for that dedication, which I know for the passionate HR people, they ultimately want their human capital population to feel alive inside, because then that's less issues for them to deal with because they're also doing hiring and all the policies and everything. So it's really just a 30-minute discussion of those things. Mm-hmm.
Well, trust, as you mentioned, is a big issue, and it comes in a lot of facets, right? So this is just ensuring you have trust and delegation, but also when a executive brings on a new assistant or somebody to help them out, there's also the anxiety of developing that relationship. And then also it's kind of like, it's almost like dating in a sense, because you have to open yourself up, you have to give those duties over and release those with trust. And then there's a fear of this person. I go, geez, what if they left me now? And they find another job opportunity. And I forgot what I told them all to do. And they're operating and they're doing the beautiful job. But if they left now, I'd be lost.
Yeah.
And, So how do we alleviate that anxiety, or how do we alleviate the damage if an assistant leaves?
It's a great question, and we're in a very unique landscape of talent right now. And it, showed up March of 2020, and it's evolved and sort of created its own, excuse me the term, but a bit of a beast of its own that's just kind of in the air, and it's nationwide, it's probably global. Mm-hmm. When we do think about building trust, and yes, it's slightly like dating, we're learning about one another. One of my strategies is supporting onboarding in that first 90 days. And I am a huge fan, by the way, of a Wednesday start date if possible. And some are not going to like what I'm about to say. The assistant does not start interacting with the executive until the following Monday. The assistant, he or she, is onboarding, getting their computer, getting access to calendars, doing a tour, booking 15 minutes with the VIPs that are always needing your executive, and then those executives that are always flybying. What do you usually need from my executive, Sam? You know, how are you seeing that Sam can improve his performance? And that's not normal for an executive assistant because they see it as a secretary. And we didn't talk about that when I was kind of explaining those categories, but they're just thinking, you know, it's Mad Men and this person is sitting and just doing some of those tasks. When an assistant might come in and be strategic and ask for this, it's that assistant is now building their understanding and comprehension of this company and this executive. Even if they've been a career EA, it doesn't matter. We need to learn the people and the business to then start pulling out our tools to apply them to this environment. And so from an onboarding perspective, and then when the assistant kind of schedules, you know, a first touch point with the executive, I have something that's called a user manual, and the executive gets it and the assistant get it. And this can be created in any internal organization. It's a series of questions like, when do you feel like you're having a great day? What would be a bad day? You know, what triggers you? What's your leadership style? And both individuals fill it out and they swap sheets. It is an accelerated way of learning about the other person. And you can do it privately, creating the file and answers, and then swapping it and read it. You get to know more. It's all about learning each other, to your point about a relationship. And so if we have that activity happening on the side, when they sit together, I already know what triggers you. So I'm going to be very careful. I already know what a sense of accomplishment looks like. So I'm going to be trying to achieve that on a daily basis because we don't show up to fail, right? And we beat ourselves up the worst because we think highly of ourselves because we are so instrumental on the org chart. So the trust building part is for the executive. Yes, this person may leave you someday. However, they leave people, not always jobs. And so if you are the best executive ever and you invest in them, you get them coffee every now and then I read this the other day, and I do this all the time for my assistant, Leah. I love her. I say, thank you so much. And I close a call saying, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's vocabulary that quite honestly has not been put into the professional capacity, and it should. So from a trust perspective, they might leave you. They might. And so I can't guarantee retention. What I can say is give them your time. Let them ask questions. And if they're nervous and they aren't able to ask intelligent questions, give them feedback.
Okay. Great. Yeah.
Outstanding tips. Very good.
Love the concept around recognition too. I find that as a rewards professional, and recognition I find is the most powerful element. You know, you can pay a person competitively, you can even pay them high in the range, but if the lack of recognition can definitely cause them to leave your company.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, very important there. So as far as revisiting bless you. So as far as revisiting the concept of time and how to leverage time more appropriately or effectively as an executive and so forth, we talked about delegation and around planning. And are there other ways that leaders can really learn to harness time and use that more effectively? Is there other things that you'd recommend?
So being intentional with your calendar. Color coding is key, and it's super fast to get that going. Giving your individual assistant time in a one-on-one meeting. And if they're showing up without an agenda, say, let's try something new. Can you start coming with an agenda with your most hot button items first? I gave a speaking engagement a couple of weeks ago, and this came up about meetings and trust. And she's been with this executive for 5 years. They have meetings on Monday morning, and she shows up with a long list, and it says only a half hour on the calendar, and he's giving it to her, but he says, don't let this run into a 1 hour meeting. And it goes to an hour. And I explained to her, because he turns the meeting into a working meeting. She asks a question for a task, and he actually starts doing it. That's different than strategizing the time to receive information to go out and delegate on their own.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So don't have a meeting with your assistant on a Monday. It's irresponsible. I'm a huge fan of Thursday. Thursday is a power day. Let that executive come back to the office on Monday. Let them be bombarded by everyone else but you, right? And then things naturally also solve themselves. So you may ask a question and spend 10 minutes talking about it on Monday, and it's resolved by the end of the day. And so doing it on Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning, you have all day to get stuff done. Friday, you have follow through, and you can leave with a sense of accomplishment. Monday, it's slightly irresponsible. When I suggest Thursday, they're like, this is a game changer in our life.
Yeah.
So that trust building.
Yeah, because all weekend, all the leaders and the employees are coming up with all their problems to bring back on Monday morning. So that is absolutely 100% true. It's just the executives are bombarded on Monday.
Yeah. And you can just sit back and watch, right? Like, while everyone needs your executive, you're like, I don't need you today. I've got stuff to do.
Yeah.
And that sense of autonomy. Yeah. And then, which is amazing, you know, and I know assistants work around the clock a lot. I did for so many years. All of my jobs, I was around the clock. That Thursday, you have time to do it. You know, you came through, you broke, and you divided and went and conquered. Friday, you're getting stuff done. Essentially, what can be paused because it's not hot, you're already hitting the ground on Monday, getting stuff done. You quite honestly don't need more from your executive. So, you know, that allows them. And this is another thing from a trust perspective that you mentioned, Sam. You might call it micromanaging your executive. We call it managing up. And one of the things that I loved to do when I was an assistant was I created an agenda sheet for the day with certain sections of information: brain dump, action, ideas. And when you have this, and it can be, I have an iPad with a pencil. I use it religiously. A lot of these executives still love paper. If you can create that essential template for them, they have a place to put information. And then they're not always calling you with an idea. And you're essentially helping them structure where they put what they're on these financial calls, thinking about other stuff. Where are they going to put it? Give them a space to put it. Some executives use a written journal. I think that's fine. I think that's great when they're out to a meeting. But where's the information for you, the assistant, that is special for you? And so giving them a document, it's at the top of their day. If you are reporting to the office, it is on their desk, and it is there, and it, you know, it says their name at the top. Maybe you want to get creative and have little boxes at the top for how much water they've had all day, right? And kind of thinking into that nurturing space of them as a human being. Do they need a snack? You know, I don't do hangry well, by the way. So that's why I mentioned snack and lunch a few times. I always knew when I was going to need to get lunch covered sooner because we just were going to be unproductive. So having that document for them, right? Giving them a place to store information. Also, if they're walking into meetings and maybe there's just some basic notes that are recap from the last meeting that they can refresh their memory on, and then track takeaways, there is a bucket for their thoughts. And then if I were their assistant, Hilani list. They leave the meeting and they hand you the paper, and you know what happened in that meeting. You know what action items need to be handled. So that's where there is a collaboration. I view it as managing up because we're giving them some directives, we're giving them tools. And then if you don't have an assistant, start making those documents for yourself right now so that you have some of that compartmentalized structure in your workday.
Great.
That's fantastic. And well, hey, Melissa, how are you doing? She's on asking questions. I'm so happy my executive assistant is on here. But I absolutely love one of my assistants that helped me with the color coding on the files. She even helped me with, I would always grab a pen from the storage bin, always grab a pen. And at the end of the month, she'd say, Shara, it's time for you to collect all your pens so I can reorganize them into the storage. But it was just kind of this thing because I was always running to all these meetings and strategic and talking to everybody. And it was just kind of a nervous habit to grab a pen all the time. Just that little detail just helped me be more organized, which I so appreciated. Just a minute detail like that.
Yeah, I see Melissa. She asked about Calendly. It is key. And if you use it to, it's $99 a year. Yeah. If you use it to its extreme functionality, I have used, you can ask questions and in those questions, like who brought us together? What do you want to talk about? What's your LinkedIn profile? Before I get on that call, I have everything I need. And I use it every now and then versus my assistant Leah scheduling for me. And I also send it to friends. They're like, I need to book time with you. And I just shoot it off in an email. Here's a shortcut, by the way, I want to let everyone know about for the Apple users out there. I don't think many people capitalize on this advantage enough, and you absolutely should. If you are sending routine communication, for example, my Calendly link, I don't want to copy it from somewhere and paste it over here. In Apple products, they have keyboard shortcuts where you can identify 4 characters, which immediately will populate whatever that shortcut is assigned to. So I have multiple keyboard shortcuts, and this is great for executives that don't have assistants. And if you start incorporating Calendly, I have, some language that says, I'd like to help us alleviate each other's time. I wish to suggest that you use my link at your convenience to book time for us to connect, right? Not put time on my calendar, for us to connect. The language is key. So I press SSSS and boom, all of that spits out. And then SSST and the Calendly link is there, and I am done in under 15 seconds. And those are really beautiful technical solutions that we have right at our fingertips. I don't know if it's on an Android, so I'm sorry if you have an Android. It may be out there. I'm sure there's an app for it and you can use it. But those types of things are also ways to sort of kind of consider the concept of an assistant. And this is like that bridge process before you bring an assistant on, and you just want to kind of capitalize on some of those technical already available to you solutions. And then the inexpensive of Calendly and the benefits of that.
Great. Well, I know we're approaching the top of the hour, so I do want to acknowledge our sponsor here. And as everybody knows, our sponsor is TMA, the TMA method. And the great thing about the TMA method is just like we were talking about, getting to know your people, getting to know your new admin or whoever it may be on your team. This is a great tool to where you can provide an assessment for your team member to fill out. And it creates a great way to have a very productive conversation around their talents, what motivates them, what's the best way to interact with them and personally, and also have a discussion about their future and where they can do their best work in the organization. So this is a great way to leverage that. So if anybody would like to learn more about the TMA method, feel free to reach out to me at support@compteam.net, and we'll sign you up for a trial of that assessment, and you can fill one of those out, and I can walk you through on how that's done. Shara is also an expert in the TMA method. She uses it with her business quite extensively. And how's that going for you, Shara?
Oh, I think it's a culture changer. I mean, I really do. I mean, we're all about positive psychology. We don't even use traditional performance management. We're always talking about drives, talents, passions, performance, and really comparing. We're getting to that comparison phase now with our employees. And I have great response from my employees. It's definitely been a positive approach in our company. It's been fantastic.
Great. So also, I just want to acknowledge our next week's speaker, and I still need to confirm with Andre because we've had we just need to make sure that we're connected here. But next week's topic is Agile Talent Management, and Andre has spoken on this before, but we're in a new context now of how to be not only agile in this new hybrid environment, where we have some people in the office, some people outside the office remotely, and in between. But how is this going to, the new concept of agile talent management, going to help us in being a more resilient company in the near term and in the long term? We all know there's the unknowns of how we're going to operate through this next flu season and so forth. I mean, we could find ourselves back at home in some aspects, or changing the way we work once again. So we need to be ready for, just about anything there. And knowing our people, knowing how to leverage the TMA method is what Andre is a professional at. And so hopefully we'll have him on this next week. If he's unable to join us, I will talk to him, and I'll be able to go through this topic on my own, as we've had many discussions.
A lot of conversation on this topic for sure.
Yeah, great. All right. So in the next few minutes, I know we're coming towards the end of our conversation here, Hilani. So what is the best way that our listeners can contact you and learn more about your services?
Yeah, so I have a website. It is exceptionaladmins with an S at the end.com. And it's broken out in that menu bar where there's a client services tab, and you can really digest. And I just uploaded this morning a commercial for the company, so that's kind of exciting. And it has,
I'm putting the link up for the website. So
okay, very good. Yes. And so there's a client services page, and it gives you kind of summaries of the areas of focus and support. And then now there's the commercial. And then for the candidate side, there is a drop down with a wealth of information, a link to the podcast that I have, which can be found on any media player platform. And I've been told executives are listening to it as well, right? They're getting into the head of their assistant, understanding how their assistant moves and thinks. And they're also thinking about ways, which is exciting from a talent perspective, of how to elevate their admin to the next level. And it doesn't have to be a title change. It's job scope evolution, right? If they've been doing a lot of this, give them a little bit more, right? Because that's where retention happens. And admin does not want to feel at 18 months like they're doing the same thing on day one. And so if we can give them that evolution versus the word growth, that is really key. And I have EA University, which is, yes, out of Denver, which is where the November 4th event will occur in the Cherry Creek North area. There are only 28 seats. We have 3 speakers. I'm one of them, and 2 other speakers who are executive assistants currently placed in roles today, of which I'm proud that I got them in those seats. And they're giving 1.5 hour sessions. We're also doing breakouts. In those breakouts for EA University, I have situational challenges, and we break into small groups. They each have a challenge. They have 10 minutes as a group to try to problem solve. And then we go around the room. What was your challenge? What was your solution? And then that's really where the learning occurs. And then we have at the end of that day, a post-it note session where something that they're working through, like maybe they want to change their job scope, maybe they want to ask for a raise. And we really open up for a beautiful dialogue with the attendees, myself and the 2 other speakers. That goes for about an hour. And then we do end on a happy hour, which is really great. And so the website is great. The podcast is valuable. I'm doing more and more of these, which is just such an honor to be invited to speak on something I'm so passionate about. And so the best place to go is the website. And then I'm very active on my LinkedIn business page for both myself and the business. So there's a lot of content that shows up there as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Hilani. This has been a great conversation, and a lot of, great.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the time. It was great to meet you 2 ladies. Thank you.
Great to meet you.
All right. Bye. Have a wonderful week. See everybody next week.
You too. Have a productive week.
Bye.